been a long time since I've recorded. I've wanted to record for a while, and there's been numerous times where I've wanted to express something, and the only kind of avenue was to try and vlog, but it just didn't seem to manifest in that way. Obviously feel lots of nervous energy recording again. I was looking at my phone, the back of it, and I can see it's slightly diagonal, so I'm hoping, well, it doesn't make too much difference really if it is a bit, but yeah, I guess it's bothering me that I can see it's a bit slanted, which I'll try and fix for the next recording. Wondering if it's a bit dark and if I should open the curtain a bit, if that will help. I don't know, maybe not. Yeah, so I really wanted to talk about what was on my mind was trauma. I've been reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and I'm at the beginning stages of it. I've only read like 100 pages, so, or maybe just below, so I'm like a quarter of the way through. But a lot of the descriptions about trauma and how it can affect so many things really stand out to me, and it really resonates. And on one hand it's validating, but on the other hand there's sadness there as well, of the reality of living like that. Like, for instance, one of the things that stands out is I can't remember much of what I'd read, like I want to quote from the book, but I think it was talking about like it can be hard to feel joy. It obviously mentions lots of things when someone goes through trauma, and all of the circuits it can reshape, or it can, that's another way of describing it, interfere perhaps with sort of, which makes it harder to like feel things like joy, or and I think it mentioned also like not quite confusion, but difficulty in knowing how one feels. And there's lots of overlaps here as well, because in autism there's alexithymia, which is the difficulty in, I think, in expressing emotions, but also understanding and feeling emotions, or knowing what you're feeling. And then I guess the trauma interferes with that as well. So it feels like there's, in some ways, so much sort of, I guess, the difficulty is right now, if I'm trying to word it, and this is the real struggle of me trying to get my own understanding in regards to getting, which, without that understanding, it can makes me feel a bit insane, or or you don't know like where you are mentally. It can make you feel like it's almost like I've lost track of how far I've gone in some respects in regards to mental health. Like, there's so much in me that's kind of holding myself up, whether it's social interaction or trying to kind of maintain connection with people. And underneath that, there's lots of things. There's lots of difficulty and and I'm having real trouble talking about it and describing it, and it's frustrating. And I know this is one of the symptoms of, whether it's alexithymia or trauma or anything else, which is just makes it. But I'm trying. This is the whole reason I've set up my phone and camera and recording this. The only way I feel like I can do it, instead of just trying to think in my head, which is not healthy. I think there's a lot of sort of disconnection going on to how I'm feeling. I think, like, whether it label it alexithymia or trauma, or the inability to really be attuned to what's going on with me right now. And I guess that's why I kind of use that word, and not lightly as well. It can feel like I'm losing my mind a bit, or like the barometer of behavior can wildly swing. Like, I could say, if the barometer's here and I'm, like, say, like a presentable me would be in the middle, where I'm coherent, I'm clear, I'm not sort of outwardly overwhelmed or disorientated. Underneath that, it can easily collapse, and suddenly I can swing to here. Then I'll be like kind of stimming, and my voice would change, and it feels scary, that gap there, and how far that barometer can go down. Like, it feels like it's not kind of fixed. It's not kind of fixed there. It can be a little bit scary if I get under stress or really difficulty. I don't know how far down that will go. And it's scary because like, there's no way to explain the gap. Like, someone would just, naturally judge my behavior with that, and as the nature of mind is to kind of fill in gaps, and to, the reason for this behavior is A, B, and C. And of course, it just feels like there's very little understanding in some ways that I have, let alone people around me. And this frustrating thing, I'm trying to feel how I'm feeling. I'm sure there's frustration there, even though I can't sort of capture that clearly. That there isn't really much that can help. But it doesn't feel that way. There are things that can help, but not in a strong way necessarily. And that doesn't feel so true. Maybe it does. There's loads of things that, there's so many things that, for health-wise, I can probably, maybe there's a bit of research or data backed into it. But there's only so much I can try and do to help myself. I'm aware this is coming across really fragmented, and that's just how it has to be. For like, part of recording is just to do it, not necessarily have a shape to it or a quality to whatever I'm talking about. Maybe it's in a good thing. It kind of, I rarely watch this stuff back, but it might help to, almost in some ways, it legitimizes what I'm feeling, my behavior, where it's fragmented or I'm not making sense. And that kind of almost reflects what's going on in my mind, or the difficulty that's going on right now. I have been using ChatGPT to help a little bit with my day, especially in regards to feeling stuff. Like this morning when I was having porridge, ChatGPT mentioned, in a very gentle way, just notice for a moment that the quality of the porridge, maybe it's warm or it's sweet, and that felt helpful. Just to have some point of entry versus having to kind of, completely feel what it's like having breakfast, or where it becomes too overwhelming or too big of a thing to do, versus just for a second, maybe notice a small thing. And of course, to do that, it takes energy and it's stressful as well. Like even now, I can sense in my head there's lots of tension there, almost like I'm looking at a really bright light, and there's a thought that this is too dark, and I may not be clear on a camera, but again, that's how it has to be right now. I don't have the energy to check the preview screen on the other side, but anyways. I think what I don't know if scared's the right word, but what I'm aware of, perhaps I can start with that, is that, like, if a big collapse happens, like, everyone will be shocked. They'll be like, God, he was doing better last week or last month, and they don't realise that times of when I'm perhaps a little bit more outwardly, a little bit less stressed or a little bit more stressed, they still don't realise the gap that, it takes me to maintain that, really. And that's the masking. The gap is like me trying to mask to get to that level. Like when I went in to see the doctor recently, like, I was like, I had my eyes closed quite a lot, and I was hunched over as well, and it felt quite freeing to do that. And number one, I don't know the doctor personally, so it's easier to unmask. Number two, because it's like a medical environment, it just feels I've got sort of more permission to unmask, versus if I was speaking to somebody in a shop, and where I probably would unmask a bit more. Like I may often close my eyes, or I'll be stimming with my fingers. Maybe I'll be speaking really slowly, and I noticed that, and that's the gap perhaps I'm thinking of. And it's not just that, the masking, it's also the mental health or the mental cognition, where it can sort of, I'm trying to be clear and engage, and but underneath that there's like either a gap, and there's lots of, it's almost feels indescribable, besides the words difficulty or unwellness underneath that. And going back to Body Keeps a Score, when it talks about the trauma, and I guess that's adding context to what I'm talking about, the unwellness, part of that is the trauma. Part of it might be other things, like, I guess it could be autism or other stuff I've been through, whether it's anxiety or depression. But yeah, the just honing in again on the trauma just really resonated, and it just shows how profound it can affect somebody. And as I was reading that, I was like, oh, that's really, yeah. And of course, it overlaps with autism in some of the symptoms, whether it's you can't look somebody in the eyes or, and I thought there's lots of overlaps, which is, so it's hard to fully distinguish, oh, that's trauma and that's autism, where it can be a blend of stuff. And of course, you add long COVID in there as well, which is a huge, it's, a huge kind of disability for me. And especially the brain fog. So you add in the brain fog, which obviously affects the ability to feel. And then there's the alexithymia, and then trauma. It's like, yeah, it's just a huge, it's no wonder perhaps I'm feeling the way I am with, and when I say the amount of trauma I've been through, it's not necessarily comparing in the sense that, oh, I've been through so much, but the amount, I guess, using Gabor's definition, the amount of sort of disconnection that occurred in the body, the trauma that occurred in the body, I can almost feel, and also it just makes sense with how I'm feeling, that so much has taken place where, a lot of time I can imagine somebody perhaps who is more outspoken, that would sort of shield some of the trauma, I wonder. Or I'm trying to say it in an accurate way. I'm wondering, because I'm the opposite. I keep everything in. I don't sort of shout, or, if I'm in a really difficult way, I'd freeze and everything will go inward. And I'm imagining that's probably worse than somebody who's able to outwardly express stuff, where still stuff is happening. It's really difficult, but there's less maybe staying inside. And I don't mean that in a comparison way, that somebody who does outwardly express has it easier, but just speaking strictly for myself, like if I was able to perhaps outwardly express more, which doesn't seem to be my nature or my ability or capacity right now, then I would perhaps struggle a little bit less, or yeah, maybe there'd been like less sort of, I used the word damage, which is probably not a great word to use, but it's just a word that comes to mind now. Whatever, everything's encompassed in that, whether it's the effects of autism or long COVID or trauma, where those things are creating more sort of disconnection when they are I know what I want to say, but I can't find the words. It's almost like I can feel the non-verbal energy of what I'm trying to say, but maybe when those are activated, I had thought about returning to counselling, but it feels like I'm going to run into the same problem that I'm running into now, like recording this. A lot of the time in counselling, there were questions like, okay, and how do you feel in your body right now? Or how does that make you feel, you saying that? And it's mentally like torturous. And they're great questions, valid questions, important questions, but it's torturous because like to go into there, it's like not quite like this, but imagine sort of walking through like waist deep mud and the legs are barely moving, and it's like it takes so much effort, and it almost does more, I don't want to use the word damage, but more, it creates more stress than not saying or not trying to do that, or it leaves me more afraid. Also, it feels like I haven't recorded in a long time, and over the weeks and months there's been little spurts where in my head a little bit of vlog has occurred, has like played in my head. Oh, this is, if I could record right now, this is what I would say. And all of that is compiled, and now it's kind of filling my head, and I'm struggling to, because I've got so much to express in some ways, but it's all sort of bottlenecked. I'm feeling kind of the pressure in my head, the amount of thoughts that want to be shared, but yeah. Yeah, in regards to writing, I'm going through the same sort of cycle of torturous difficulty with it. At the moment, I'm trying to get some consistency with writing, even if that means 2 minutes looking at the novel in the day, and then some kind of engagement with it each day. That's kind of my current focus. Like right now, I'm rereading what I've written to try and dial back in to the character, and I've done this several times, and I have to do this again now because there's been a gap of sort of spending time in the novel, and I'm just completely disconnected from the character and the story. So I'm really trying my best to do that, and also knowing that I'm nowhere near, I've got the sort of feeling or the grasp of the story than I would have had even pre-long COVID. I was struggling with brain fog then, but before that, I'm kind of nowhere near like where I was when I was kind of a lot more in the flow of writing, and I don't know if I can get back there. So I'm kind of aware of that as I pull in the effort to try and engage, knowing I can't at the moment. That kind of capacity to really engage in writing is not there, but I need to do something to keep me focused, have something to keep me focused, something to anchor me, because although I'm engaging with people and seeing people, there's so much sort of aloneness and isolation there as well, because it's often in small bursts, so I can still feel quite disconnected and quite alone. And obviously it takes energy to socially engage, so it's like a catch-22. It's so hard to connect for me. It takes so much effort and energy, and I'm willing to try and do that, but at the same time I'm aware that there's only a certain amount of energy I have, and I have to obviously manage that with people, and sometimes it becomes sort of unmanageable, and yeah, I've had to kind of sort of have breaks from like I saw a family member, my brother and I ran into a family member, and they were saying kind of stay in touch, and I was like, I don't think I can, and I was kind of trying to communicate that to them, and it was difficult, and I get that with friends as well, where over the years I've had to it's just not been possible to maintain contact with people, and so much has sort of changed, and again it's that catch-22 where I feel the way I feel, I don't really feel connected, or I struggle with feeling connected with people, And part of that is because I don't spend a lot of time, or there isn't a lot of time spent with people, and I'm trying to balance that as much as I can, and try and listen to myself with that, and try and make an effort to on that front. Then on the opposite end, I've got to sort of look after myself also. If there's too much sort of stress or too much difficulty, or there isn't the energy there for me, then that's another difficulty with connecting. And I've got to kind of stay guarded with that as well. Yeah, I think each day just feels its own unique challenge quite often. I find that it's almost like, especially I've noticed recently when I wake up in the morning, it's like having to program myself to think, okay, just focus on one thing at a time. Like, part of me wants to forecast a day a little bit, thinking, okay, yeah, maybe I'm going to do this, or maybe I'm, and it's so difficult to do that now. And yeah, like the basics, like taking a shower and things around food, just takes up all of my energy. Like, I've been beginning to do like 10 minutes of yoga in the morning. I've been doing it. Some days have been missed, but maybe for the last week. But that's just taking up a lot of my effort to do that, to kind of, like this morning, I think I was in bed and I did use ChatGPT this morning, saying I want to like try and do some yoga, but I just feel so overwhelmed and so tired, and it suggested just get changed into your yoga clothes, just do that, which I did, and then it mentioned, okay, just stand on a yoga mat and see how you feel, and it's kind of almost walking me through and giving me permission to exit any time, and then to do one pose, and okay, is that enough? Do you want to do some more? But yeah, and it feels like, I don't know what's being absorbed as well. Do you know when like you grow and you pick up new techniques and new ways of coping, sometimes it can feel like it's amnesia the next day. You just like, you've forgotten how I managed, the other day, and it's really hard to build on stuff and for stuff to grow. Like right now, it just doesn't feel possible. Like take physical stuff, like with yoga. I've noticed perhaps a slight, like it's a bit easier to do certain stretches, but my body rigidity is still very much there. And I know it's just been a week, but yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm sure some strength's building, but it's so small, and it just feels like it's so hard to build a base to get better almost. It's yeah. Yeah, and I'm feeling a feeling now. I'm trying to put words to it, but it's no words are coming. And it's to do with the unwellness. Like, maybe it's not possible to put words to it, which is scary, and I can feel the mind almost shrinking at that. And yeah, and maybe scarily, it feels like I'm kind of sliding more towards being more unwell, and there's nothing to do to stop it really. I can try and slow it down, but it almost feels like whatever's occurring is just occurring, and I can try and do things to help with healing. Like for me to be in the present moment and outside of thoughts, or not continually following thoughts. That's for me something that's, well, nothing feels super accessible, but that's probably the most accessible thing for me, versus having certain like supplements or things around food, which I'm trying to do in small ways, which all count. But yeah, it just feels scary that that's happening. Like I've used the word in the past so much, like the mind is eroding, or the functionality of the mind's eroding day by day, and maybe in very small amounts, but almost sometimes feels like I have to kind of compensate the amount that's lost. I have to compensate more to kind of maintain some kind of normalcy of how I am or was, or just a masking of that. And it's so tricky. Like even today, like I haven't spoken to anyone today, and part of me knows maybe I should, well, part of me just, yeah, like it feels like it's really hard to reach out and message someone, and part of me is aware that it'll be healthy to have a bit of social connection today, but there's another part of me is just like empty almost, or maybe I'm drained, or to have social engagement requires energy that may not be there for me. And again, I want to connect, but like I can think of someone that I'd like to message, but yeah, there's just no energy to knowing what to say, and yeah. Yeah, it's really difficult because I've been enjoying the connection with this person recently, and we've been talking and meeting up as well, and yeah, and it's like days like today where I feel like, oh, maybe it would be a good thing to do. And sometimes it's hard for me to get perspective as well, in like a bird's eye view. And things in regards to like being considerate or being thoughtful, like that stuff kind of degrades a little bit, and I'm sure that can affect connections as well. Yeah, and it's definitely complicated. I'm just thinking about all of the layers of stuff. It's not just feeling alone, or which it's by itself is a huge difficulty, dealing with social anxiety or social isolation or aloneness, or where that can bring up like depressive energies or depression. And yes, I can sense maybe there's that stuff there, but then there's loads of layers of other stuff, like you look at the autistic stuff, long COVID, with the brain fog, and it's just feels so complicated. Yeah, and yeah, it kind of leaves me just hanging on, just to kind of, like right now, like today, I've done a tiny bit of cleaning, which I pushed myself to the max to do, and I've been sort of just tumbling through the day a little bit, thinking, okay, what can I do now? What's needed now? What can I do? And then so I've done like little sips of reading. I've like done 5 or 10 minutes of reading. I've tried to do about 5 or 10 minutes of writing or engaging in my novel. And I've watched a film this afternoon, thinking, okay, I need to rest as well. But yeah, it's just yeah. It's very windy. Yeah, it doesn't feel nice. That it almost feels like I'm not engaging with life really, and I think maybe the answer to that is to try and just be more present if I can. And there's something actually that just came to mind to mention about that also. I was listening to Rupert Spyros, a non-dual teacher, and a question came up, and I think he's talking about like mental fragility, or I don't know if it's mental health or illness, where there needs to be, this is my words, like paraphrasing or my understanding of what was said there, that, and this was obviously specifically, I think, for this person's question, but I was projecting it on myself, where there was a sense of caution or awareness about this type of, I say practice in quotes, but this, engaging in presence and that understanding. I may have to re-listen to it again, but there was some caution there that it can, potentially going deep into that can make one more unstable. And I was just aware of that also. And so, yeah, it's tricky because it makes me feel trapped on all sides, really. Like I don't know, like how to live life now. There's some things that are there clear, like, okay, listen to what's needed right now. Maybe find what calls to you, like activities that feel the most appealing, and to try and listen to that and go with that feeling as well of what I may find most enjoyable or needed, like that's what I've done today a little bit. But yeah, it can make me feel like I'm just not engaging in life. Life's kind of passing by and I'm doing my best just to hang in there. And that brings up the subject as well. I'll have to read up about this, but there's something about suicide rates and a high rate of suicides are autistic people. I'm not sure if that's true, if there's any truth to that, but I can resonate with that as well. Not that I'm in that place or have those thoughts, especially as of late, but just the struggle of living, of getting through the day, of absorbing sensory, of having to mask or dealing with overwhelm constantly or burnouts, on a regular basis. Obviously, maintaining and some kind of social connections and dealing with that, all types of relationships, family, it all takes up energy, and there's complications to that as well. And there's which involves like orienting yourself in that connection and sort of evaluating stuff, and each sort of interaction, it can change the shape of something, and that all takes energy. I recently joined Discord, which is fairly new to me, and it already feels overwhelming. Like, I've tried to join like a mental health support group, but there's so much like verification stuff, and it seems really harsh as well. Like, then obviously there must be, I wonder if there must be just loads of trolls or people misusing the chat, which is why now they've had to go through this. But it almost feels overwhelming to read all of the rules, and it tells you need to verify by commenting here and doing this, and it's already sort of overwhelming. And I thought it might just be a light way to build some more connection in a really low energy way, whether it's like commenting on something or engaging in that somehow. Yeah, just realised there's also Mind, Charity Mind. They do something where there's some kind of social message board. I just remembered that, so I may go back on that actually and post something just to connect. That might be an idea, but getting to that stage now, I'm thinking of ending this, but it's the same problem where I struggle to end things. So I think I'm just gonna, end this vlog.